My name is Jessica Pingwild, also known as the Rolling Explorer, and welcome to my YouTube channel. As you can see, the setting looks a little bit different for today, and that is because I am fully peeling back the curtain. I am sat here in a sweater I've been wearing for 3 days now. My hair is kind of still damp, and I have very little makeup on. And that is all purposeful because I wanted to show up as I show up most days of my life. The whole purpose of today's video is to take some of the fantasy out of what being a content creator is really like. I know that many influencers and content creators like myself get a lot of heat online for creating this world that almost seems too good to be true. And the fact of the matter is, part of being a content creator is also being a producer and being an editor and being somebody who creates something beautiful. It's a work of art. It is very much produced. I think that's a very good word for it. But I have a passion for being as authentic as I can be online. And I think part of that is peeling back this curtain and showing the behind the scenes, showing the complexities, showing my creative process, and showing the really real and raw moments that make up some of the more exciting and glamorous things that you guys see every single day. So with that said, I am going to be taking you guys all the way back to September of 2022, which is only 3 months ago, but a lot has happened in the last 3 months. And essentially, I'm just going to talk you guys through some of the things that have gone on in the fall/autumn season and have some fun with it. Share a few stories, share a few behind the scenes moments, and really hopefully just connect with you guys on an even deeper level. If that sounds interesting to you, buckle up and let's dive in. Off to my final prosthetic appointment before Fashion Week. Is anybody surprised that we're starting with Fashion Week? Because honestly, I made an entire 4-part mini-series on it for a reason. Which if you haven't yet, I obviously encourage you to go watch that. But I made it into a 4-part series because it consumed my brain for literally the entire month of September. And then because of the series, much further than that. But something I haven't really talked about yet, even with all of that footage, is how much preparation went into Fashion Week, particularly as a disabled woman. I could make an entire video on the preparation that goes into attending London Fashion Week, and honestly, I just might do that, especially as I am about ready to start preparations for February's run of Fashion Week. But one thing that I didn't really fully get across in my mini-series yet, and something I think is very important to include in this video, is how much I prioritized safety in the preparation for London Fashion Week and while attending London Fashion Week. As a disabled person, safety is always of utmost importance to me, and so one of the biggest things that I did for myself in the lead up to Fashion Week was get my prosthetic leg refitted. If you're not an amputee, you probably don't know how difficult it is to get that perfect fit for a prosthetic, but also how essential it is to get that perfect fit. If something is even slightly off, it can completely throw off your balance to the point where you fall over and get severely hurt. Yes, of course, I am talking from experience. I have gotten so many concussions throughout my life because I've fallen over things that could have easily been avoided if my leg fit more properly. And because I have a chronic illness that affects my weight, this is very difficult. Since moving to London, I have had 3 different prosthetics. That's not really normal for somebody who is in an adult body, who isn't really growing anymore, but it has been my reality. And so before Fashion Week, that was a big deal for me, was to make sure I had a prosthetic that I felt comfortable walking around in, but also felt safe walking around in. I talked very briefly about this in the video on the runway specifically, but beyond the actual fit of the prosthesis, you also have to take into consideration the angles of the knee and the foot. The foot specifically was what I was dealing with on the day of the runway, and it's something that I am regularly having to manage. If the foot's angle is off just slightly, I can slip, I can fall, I can stumble, all sorts of very dangerous and disastrous situations can happen. And as glamorous as Fashion Week looked, I think it's really important to know that that is something that's always eating at the back of my brain. Is this accessible? Is this comfortable? Is this safe? Those are 3 anxieties I have everywhere I go. Fashion Week definitely included. Especially because, and let's be real honest here, Fashion Week is a place to make your best impression. So I didn't want to be stumbling. I didn't want to be having a really wonky walk. I wanted to be at my best for the people around me. I was there to start conversations about changing the fact that I was the only person in the room, not to give people something to laugh at or to critique or to give them a reason not to change the status quo. But yeah, as I said, I've already done a pretty deep dive into what attending Fashion Week as a disabled woman really looked like. So if you're curious about peeling back the curtain on that experience, I really encourage you to go watch my 4-part miniseries because it will give you a lot more detail. But yeah, moving right along into this photo shoot that I had with an incredible team 1 week exactly after Fashion Week. Now this, like the Fashion Week prep, I think I'm going to make into another full-fledged YouTube video to talk to you about some of the complexities behind organizing your own photo shoot and what that takes and what that looks like and how much fun it was and everything and all of it. And yeah, I plan on doing that. But the one thing I want to touch on here is how things don't always go to plan. So one of my goals with this photo shoot was to not only get updated headshots, but to also diversify my modeling portfolio and do some editorial shots. For those, my ultimate goal was to have a very clear creative direction plan. And I really wanted to borrow some clothing for the shoot. But unfortunately, because it was a week after Fashion Week, and as I've already said, Fashion Week had literally consumed my entire brain for like a month, both before and after Fashion Week, it didn't happen. I wasn't able to execute it in the way that I wanted to, and therefore I ended up just wearing the same clothes that I wore to Fashion Week in this photo shoot. And you know what? It might just have been better for that. Now, let's take a step back from the glamorous side of life and enter into more of my personal life for a second. I've lived in London for just over 2 years now. And when I talk about living abroad online, I usually simply say how I'm living out this huge dream of mine. And that's not untrue. I am. I always wanted this very exciting, very adventurous life. And moving to a foreign country definitely ticks that box. And while I do talk about homesickness from time to time online, I don't necessarily know if I've gotten across how much it actually really does impact me and my mental health. I haven't been back home to the US since January of 2022. And while I'm very lucky and very grateful and very privileged that my parents have been able to visit me several times throughout the year, there are some very important people back home in the United States that I haven't seen in a very, very long time. And the longer I go in between visits, the harder that gets for me. And I make jokes online like, oh, I miss the food. I miss American food so much. Oh my gosh, somebody get me some chicken Alfredo. Yeah, of course I do. Because my response to difficult and upsetting situations has always been humor. But the reality is that it's really hard living abroad. And I am really grateful for the opportunity to be here and to get to live out this truly dreamlike state. But it's hard, and I couldn't make a video about the realities of being me if I didn't talk about it. And so that's why when my friend Cassidy came to visit me for the first time, she was the first person besides my parents to come visit me in London. It's why when she was here, it was so unbelievably important to me. I don't take days off of work very often. I'm kind of a workaholic. And when she was here, I really tried to take as many days off as possible. I really tried to be in the moment with her because having her here, having that piece of home here was so important to me. It helped me at a very difficult time when all I wanted was to be at home. And she was my home in that moment. And I'm very grateful for that. Speaking of home, here's also a fun little view into what life is like in my home. I have a dog named Oreo. He doesn't come on YouTube very often, but here he is. He's a doll. I love him dearly. But he is such a little rascal. He is such a little troublemaker. And generally speaking, he causes me a lot of stress in my life. But he also is probably one of the most joy-producing things in my life right now. And I am just so grateful to have a dog. Like, dogs are so great. They're so wholesome. They're so sweet. And even when they get into your trash bin and make a mess of your kitchen, you can't help but love them, can you? Because just look at their face. Look at their face. But yeah, that's a little true behind the scenes of what life is like. Let's talk about some events, shall we? So this fall, I feel like I've been very lucky to attend two pretty glamorous events. The first one was the premiere of Jungle, which is an Amazon Prime original series. And then the other was a Disney event that celebrated 100 years of Disney, which was a dream come true. A dream is a wish your heart makes. All the dreams, all the Disney. Yeah. And I want to talk about these two because I think as important as it is to show behind the scenes, I think it's also important to talk about some of the goals that I've had for my career as a content creator. And one of the goals I had for myself was to attend a premiere event. And I did that this fall. Another goal I had for myself was to work with Disney, which I did this fall. Granted, did I get paid for it? No, but that doesn't matter. It was an event. It was the coolest thing. There was dancing characters. I got to meet Mickey and Minnie Mouse, literal goals. But yeah, I think it's important to talk about the wins in this because those were two things that I just had on like my bucket list of being a content creator. And I'm just so grateful to have had those opportunities. I don't know. I think I'm including this just as a way to say thank you, but also as a way to like let you guys know that I do have goals in a way and that these were important to me. And I just feel very lucky to have been able to do both of them. And I think acknowledging that and talking about that is really important. But yeah, these are two really important things to me. And I'm very, very, very grateful to have been able to do them. So yeah. So moving right along, I don't think it'll come as a surprise to any of you if I tell you that I struggle with losing control. It's probably one of the reasons why I'm an entrepreneur. It's probably one of the reasons why I'm a content creator. Because on my platforms and in my content, I get to decide how I show up. I get to be my authentic self. I get to say the words that I want to say. I get to convey my story and my experiences my way. Which, as a disabled woman who has had so few opportunities presented to me to be authentic in my life and to share my authentic story, and also to hear other people like myself share their authentic stories, it is so important to me to make sure that when I am being talked about, interviewed, any sort of thing in the media, that the right angle, the right perspective is shared. Press about disabled people can so quickly become one of inspiration porn, which is something that really sickens me as a disabled woman. And this fall, I've had several opportunities that I feel very, very lucky about to be featured in different press and media. But each time one of those opportunities came up, I felt very aware of the fact that I almost had to take on board more of the work as an interviewee to make sure I led the interviewer down a path that wasn't going to point towards inspiration porn. And I feel very, very lucky that the interviewers and the journalists that did reach out to me, that did tell my story, that I have worked with this fall, have done so splendidly well. Specifically, I was featured on ITV Evening News in London and then on ITV News's website in their blog or as an article or something. I was on ITV News on the channel, the TV channel here in London. If you're from England, you'll know that that's a pretty big network. That's a pretty big deal. And I was so thrilled that Daniel Henry, who was the journalist that I was working with for this interview, not only heard what I had to say about my concerns on inspiration porn, but made it a focal point of the article. He did that. That's amazing. I felt so heard. I felt so seen. And I think it's really important to talk about this because as a content creator, I see and understand the value of press. Anytime you can reach a wider audience, that's good for somebody who's trying to spread a message, who's trying to make content for as many people as possible. That's just the reality of it. I'm going to speak the truth. That's a reality. People like press for that reason. And of course, especially as a disabled woman who's trying to get a very important message across within her content, that idea of reaching a wider audience is very important to me. But it has to be done in a way that feels authentic as well. And the fact that all of the journalists I had the pleasure of working with this year did such a good job with that just warms my heart, and it makes me really hopeful for the future of media that we're doing it. We're breaking the barriers. We're changing the narrative, and that is so important, and I'm just so excited about it, and I just had to talk about it because I hadn't really talked about it a whole lot, specifically on YouTube, and it needed to be said. So that is a really big part of what happened to me this fall.
Hey y'all, so it's October 1st and I don't normally self-shoot my content anymore, but today I am out in full Halloween attire and I am self-shooting an October 1st little reel / short / TikTok, and yeah, we're having fun. We're doing our best and we're in the spooky season.
Okay, guys, the final thing I'm going to talk about today is my content creation process. This is not something I see a lot of other content creators talking about, and it's something I think is really, really interesting because every content creator, I'm sure, creates content in a very different way. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how I create content by using some behind the scenes clips from some of my favorite pieces of content over the last 3 months. So in that first clip where I'm wearing the devil outfit, I talk about how I don't self-film a whole lot of my content much anymore. And that's true, I don't. I am very lucky to have Mary, who is many things to me, but she is also a great and fabulous and wonderful content production assistant who essentially helps me film a lot of the videos you've probably seen of me. So here in the Medusa costume, you can see that we are trying to figure out the lighting and the angle and exactly what sort of direction we're going with this strut. Now, if you're familiar with my content and you follow me, which if you don't, you definitely should be across all platforms, all social media is linked in the description below. But if you are familiar with my content, you know I love a strut. And I do a strut every single Saturday, the Saturday strut, if you will. And it might seem really simple, and to be honest with you, in the grand scheme of content, it is. They usually are the quickest things that we can film. But even a strut takes a long time. This Medusa strut probably took a half an hour by the time it was all said and done. And that half an hour doesn't even count getting into the costume. That's just the actual filming, production, setup situation. So once I was dressed, I then went outside and we were dealing with a ticking clock that is a setting sun, which as a content creator who has not always had access to the best lighting is very stressful. And in this particular situation, I had a very specific look that I was going for, and I really liked the idea of the golden hour sun. So we were literally up against the clock. But it ended up working out, and we found the right angle, and that video did so well across all platforms. I'm so grateful. And I was really happy about that too, because the whole purpose of that video was to talk about feminism and how within disability advocacy, there are so many different intersectionalities, and I talk about being a woman and femininity and all of that very frequently. And for me, bringing in the character of Medusa for Halloween, which is something that means a whole heck of a lot to me as an American who lives in London, it was the perfect combination. And I love that piece of content so much, and a lot went into it, as you can see. I would say 99% of the behind the scenes clips you see from me are not staged at all. So to honor some of those moments, here are some of my favorite true, organic, behind the scenes clips from fall 2022.
Bye.
Oh, aren't you gonna do the swipey poo? Yeah.
Pose. 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 Pose.
Oh my god, I didn't do the day of my life thing yet. I gotta do that.
Say something.
Hi there, my name is Jessica Ping, and I am sat in a fret.
Ready? Go on then.
Pour the tea? Pour the tea.
There you go, guys. That is a deep dive insider's look into what my life has been like in fall/autumn of 2022. I am so unbelievably grateful to be on this journey, and I only really have you guys to thank for that. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to live out this dream. Like, honestly, it's chaos. It is absolute chaos. But like in the best way possible. I feel so lucky. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below telling me what surprised you the most, what you thought was the most funny, what you thought was the most strange. Anything and everything is great. If enough of you do enjoy this, I'm hoping to make it into a bit of a series that I do once every season to kind of wrap up the previous 3 months and really, again, go behind the scenes of what the reality is like. Really open up that curtain, really be transparent, and really try to take some of the fantasy out of this content creation fantasy land. If that sounds interesting to you, or any of the other upcoming videos that I mentioned in this video sound interesting to you, be sure to hit that subscription button and notification bell so you never miss out on any future content. But until then, thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye! I'm too weird of a person for me to plan out every single thing I say. So there you go.